Talking about the factors that would influence the contours of the IT hardware industry in the foreseeable future, basically we are looking at demand boost emanating both from the government and the consumer space. Equally importantly, we are looking at facilitators which will make it happen. It's fine to say there will be new technology, new form factors, but it's critical that there are facilitators which make this more robust, starting with good power connectivity, good communication connectivity, urbanization, education and rising income levels. And if you just step back and look at some of the larger sectors where demand is going to kick in, which will have a definitive impact on IT hardware, fundamentally it will be banking because of inclusiveness. It's spreading like wildfire year on year. Talking of government, in many of the citizen facing services delivery mechanisms where IT is an integral part, and we believe these will be two fundamental things which will make it very strong from the government space. And from the consumer space, basic socio-economic parameters like better education, urbanization, higher income levels will boost the requirement and aspiration levels for owning, adopting different form factors in the IT hardware space. When we talk of declining demand, I think it's a temporary phenomenon. Why? Fundamentally because in India the IT penetration rate is pathetically low, right? We are talking of a figure of hardly 10%. When we compare it to peers in the BRIC group, we are way off. You look at China, it is 35% plus. You look at Russia, it is in the neighborhood of 30 plus. You look at a neighboring country like Malaysia, it's 60% plus. So there are some unnatural factors which is holding it back, but we believe that we can continue to be bullish with the right enablers coming in, with the right boost coming in from the government in terms of reforms and policy measures. That's something which we are very confident India will deliver in terms of higher penetration rates. To get into a slightly detailed explanation of this, if you look at the government and the enterprise space, even today when people are talking of the death of the desktop and talking of declining sales of desktop, fundamentally you require stationary computing as a means for automation. Whether it's government, whether it is large enterprises, this is fundamental. The stationary computing might undergo some change in terms of form factor from a tower type to a mini to a small form factor or to an all-in-one, but demand is very latent there, and we believe it is going to see us have sustained demand for the next 4 to 5 years. When you go to the corporates, go to the SMEs, you go to the consumer segment, while it still reflects the low IT penetration rate at a larger level, here again the adoption of mobile devices, and when I talk of mobile, I am talking of mobile computing devices like notebooks, which is reinventing itself in new form factors like convertibles, like detachables, which is going to drive demand for easy adoption. And if you look at the underlying layer which I mentioned earlier, which is in terms of better connectivity, you talk of 4G round the corner, you talk of India enjoying or boosting or boasting the lowest connectivity call rates in terms of prices, data rates being the lowest. It has to go up. There's no way but it has to go up, and there are enough studies which show that any investment or any improvement in broadband penetration, for example, there was a World Bank study which said a 10% increase there will kick in an improvement of close to 1.4% improvement in per capita GDP, right? So it's very compelling. There was also a study which was done by FICCI and some other industry body which clearly called out that whatever sample they took and studied in the SME sector, those who had adopted computing as a way of working in their businesses, they saw a clear revenue jump of 30 to 35%. So the underlying reasons are very compelling, it's very obvious. It's just that it has to start spreading, it has to get more elaborate in terms of adoption in the market. See, if you look at the last 3-4 years, when you talk of consumer technology, it is something very fluid, which is very dynamic, which is very evolving. So one would not really want to say that when you talk of consumer technology products, it is this A or that B or that C. Let me tell you that the underlying reasons of huge youth demographic dividend which we have, a very forward looking government in terms of aspirations, intent, in making policy changes which will bring in phenomenal growth across diverse sectors, fairly innovative public-private partnership projects which are being conceived. We believe what is going to help translate this into reality would be rising income levels, better credit availability to the consumers, larger awareness, all of it tethered together by better connectivity. So when we look at consumer technology, we believe that Internet of Things is going to be very, very big, and it can take any form or shape. But if I use the overall phrase of connected devices as something which encompasses the space, that is something which will keep evolving, which will keep changing. And for the future, we believe consumer is going to be more and more enamored with interface with the screens. It could be 3 screens at most, but that will take a lot of form and shape basis the technology improvements which happen in the underlying sub-element elements. But fundamentally, we believe that India is slated for good growth in adopting consumer technology in its various flavors. Talking about challenges for the Indian IT hardware industry, I think there have been many forums this has been surfaced, right from the earlier 2 governments in the center to the present government. Fundamentally, size of the demand is something which needs to be looked at as a facilitating factor. Today at 10%, as I mentioned, or roughly 9 million PC units per year, the size is hardly representative of the potential that the market can absorb. If you look at the youth profile, you look at the income levels, you look at income growth, you look at GDP growth parameters, obviously we can afford to be at least 30-35% in terms of penetration level. So that is an area which is a huge challenge for the IT hardware industry, and it has to work closely with the government in enunciating a lot of measures, some policy, some awareness level led, some ease of doing business led, which is going to unlock this potential. The second major challenge is for the IT hardware industry on the fronts of ease of doing business. This translates into various parameters, whether it's to do with imports, whether it's to do with policy clarity, whether it's to do with policy reversals which happen, whether it's to do with infrastructure availability, whether it's power, water, land for a startup or even for entities continuing to do business. That's a huge challenge. So basically it is low demand scale and inhibiting ease of doing business are the 2 fundamental challenges the IT hardware industry has been facing for the last 6 to 8 years.